Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance.
The first one is titled, I Got Fired and Went After the Boss's Money, His Hotel and His Marriage. Back when I still was in university, I used to work for a hotel to make ends meet. When I started, the hotel very urgently needed new personnel. So, I cut a deal with the old owner about getting to choose and pick shifts, so I could visit my courses and exams. Speaking some extra foreign languages, I also got a little bonus each month on top. The old owner was a great guy. He owned multiple hotels, so I rarely saw him. But when he was in the house, he always made a point to have drinks with the staff, chat with us, and if we were free, he even invited those of the front desk to fancy restaurants who were not on shift. Fast forward, I had worked in the hotel for a few years now and was nearing the completion of my studies. So, it wouldn't have been an eternity until I had to quit anyway. As I was of course more interested to work in my field of study. As part of my deal with the old owner, I mostly chose to work night shifts, allowing me to visit my courses at university during the day. To make up for my privileges, I had picked up the habit of doing some extra work in the dead of night other shifts would normally have to do, when I on contrast could have sat around and stared at the walls. People were grateful for the help in the beginning, and we became a rather tight-knit group. But over time people rotated in and out. When the old owner retired and his butthole of a son took over the business as the new owner, I already feared the worst. The new owner didn't like me very much. I never found out the exact reason for that one. I was at that point nearly the sole veteran left from when I started. Among the tasks I had taken on was doing light clerical tasks to ease the manager's job in the morning. For that, I generally had to use the manager's network account. One night while doing my lists, I logged into the manager's account and emailed to do my job. Then I saw an email with my name in the subject line. I know it is not nice to snoop, but of course, I read it. Turns out the new owner wanted to get rid of me. I still had my old employee contract with the bonuses for foreign language abilities and was allowed by my contract to pick and choose shifts. I can only assume these privileges are what made the new owner hate me. No idea if he had other reasons. Because to be honest, these seem very weak to me. But he couldn't fire me without cause. On top of that, I would be owed severance if fired. And generally, there were not enough bodies in the shift rotation without me. Though the new owner didn't seem to understand that point, as the emails told me. I looked for more email concerning me and found them. There was an email chain between some of the employees, the manager and the new owner. I was of course not CC'd as I was the hated topic. The employees didn't like me hogging the night shifts. Because those paid better, and for every night you worked you got paid the night bonus. The manager was the only one rather neutral on the matter and just curbed their enthusiasm to get rid of me, as they needed me to be fully staffed. The new owner and my colleagues actively conspired to make a hostile work environment so I would quit of my own volition. I was furious. I thought about a variety of reactions, from egging their cars to burning down the hotel, but I settled on a less crazy method of revenge. I called my uncle at 2 a.m. asking for advice. My uncle is a lawyer. So, for sake of proof, I forwarded myself all the emails. I made photos, printed them out, made copies and filmed the whole deal just to be sure. My uncle told me to sit tight and see if things got worse, or if it was just bluster. And so, I gave it a few days. And things did take a turn. Snide remarks about my looks, clothing and so on were only the tip of the iceberg. Some of the colleagues were just as professional as before. But the conspirators always left extra work for me or pond of crap duties they normally had to do on me. I always kept a spare shirt and suit at work, just to have a change, which suddenly disappeared. One guy even started to threaten me with violence. But I kept clenching my butt cheeks. I would not give them the satisfaction of saving on the severance or giving in. I am a big boy after all. I did, however, stop doing any extra work, I was not obligated to do. Which in the end was the reason they used to fire me. They still had to pay me severance. The next day my uncle with bundled proof of the email and all documented harassment by my colleagues served the hotel my lawsuit. It started with wrongful termination and ended with harassment. Reportedly the manager went white as a sheet when he realized where the emails must have come from. The new owner had been on vacation and had to cancel his expensive vacation in France to deal with this. Their counsel advised them to settle. So, I accepted my severance and a hefty bonus on top. Enough money to last me until the end of university without work. But that was not all my revenge. I had gone after the new owner's money. But in the next step, I went after the hotel. I had used all the spare time during night shifts alone, to document every last violation of city, county, district, state and federal law I could find. That went from minor things like some harmless mold under the kitchen sink to substantial violations like modifications to the building. The building was under a limited form of historical protection by federal law, on the ground of being built and inhabited by somewhat important historical figures a few hundred years back. So, every renovation or change in floor plans needs to be signed off on by a committee, which can take ages. There is also a grant paid to the new owner by the government for keeping the building intact as is. So, with my uncle's help, I sent documentation of every violation I could find to the corresponding agency. In 1 month, everything from health, building code, fire safety to the finance and work police crawled over the hotel. In the end, it was the building and fire inspectors that shut the place down. The new owner had done substantial renovations to the top-floor luxury apartments, which he used when he was in town. So, the new owner had to pay back the grant, pay fines for unauthorized alterations to the building, endangering his guests, because something wasn't built right according to fire code and had to close down shop until the building was fixed. I also tipped off a friend who had studied journalism and worked at a local paper. The paper ran an article on all the violations accumulated, which tanked the business once it had reopened, as the newspaper article had led to horrible reviews. In the end, to afford all the fines, repayments and building costs, the new owner sold the hotel. As the cherry on top, all the buttholes who had tried to harass me out lost their job. Granted, the people who didn't do anything to me lost their jobs too. But didn't do anything to stand up for me or help me either. So, I don't feel too much remorse. And the revenge cherry on top was, that the new owner, whenever he was in town, used to bring home escorts. Which in my country is not illegal. But he was married. It took some doing to get that information to the new owner's wife. But one of my former colleagues, who had quit before this had all happened, had her email. So, I let her know what the new owner was up to when he was out of town. I don't know what exactly happened, but they did divorce in the end. Make of that what you will. The next one is titled, I Ada for telling my wife her parents are not allowed to ever watch our son again. My wife and I have a 2-year-old son and have been married for 4 years. Our anniversary was a month ago and we found a nice, secluded cabin on Airbnb and rented it out for a long weekend getaway. My wife asked her parents if they would be willing to watch our son and they agreed as long as we dropped him off at their house. That worked for us since it was on our way anyway. I was raised Lutheran, and my wife was raised Catholic, but neither of us currently go to church and have not had our son baptized. My Mill knows this and hates it. She thinks our son needs to be baptized or he will burn in hell. She's that kind of Catholic. So, we go on our trip and when we pick up our son and ask how the weekend went, Mill says everything went fine and that she has saved my son's soul from the devil. I ask her what she meant, and she says she had our son baptized that morning at her church. I tried my best to keep my cool, so I didn't scream at Mill in front of my son, but I pretty much grabbed my son and left. On the car ride home, I was fuming and told my wife as calmly as I could that this would be the last time her parents have our son unsupervised. She tried to downplay what her mom had done, but I told her we need to wait until we get home to talk about it because I'm not fighting in front of my kid. When we got home and had a chance to talk about it, things got heated. I told my wife I no longer trust her parents with our son and that if they did something like this behind our backs, I can't trust them to respect our wishes as parents in the future. I said this was a huge breach of trust and I will forever look at her mom differently. She continued to try to defend her mom, saying that she was only doing what she thought was best for her grandson. She even downplayed it by saying that it's just a little water and a few words and we don't go to church anyway, so what does it matter? I told her that under no circumstances will I allow her parents to watch our son by themselves again. I said that we can still let them see their grandson, but only if we are present. I also said that if she doesn't see what the big deal is with this situation, that maybe we aren't on the same page as parents and maybe we need to see a counselor. She started crying and said that this isn't the kind of decision I get to make on my own and I'm in butthole for trying to tell her what kind of relationship her parents can have with our son. I told her that I no longer have any trust or respect for her parents and that I don't know if there's anything they can do to repair that. I told her I don't care if that makes me in butthole, but what her parents did was unforgivable in my eyes, and they put themselves in this position to lose privileges with our son. She's been trying to convince me to change my mind for the last month, but I'm not budging. To me, this is a hill I'm willing to die on. A user in the comments said, "NTA. That was a huge breach of trust. Nothing religious should be done unilaterally either by the parents or in this case, grandparents. I do agree that counseling would be a good avenue for you both to get on the same page. Also, apparently, you're in a hole for telling her that her parents can no longer see your son unsupervised, but they aren't holes for the unauthorized baptism?" Another user said, "NTA. Report the priest and/or parish that performed it without your consent to either the diocese or the archdiocese. The Catholic Church forbids baptism without parental permission. The baptism won't be officially recognized as a result, and if Mill lied and claimed she had your permission, it will land her in hot water with the church. To your wife. Letting her get away with something because she thought it was best for her grandson leads to a slippery slope. What if your mom decides it is best for your son to live with her during the week and you and your husband only see him on the weekends? Are you going to let her get away with that? It isn't her kid. She doesn't get to decide what's best, only his parents do. Your mom stomped the no baptism boundary. If you let her get away with it, she will stomp other boundaries you set up using the argument, "It's what I think is best for grandson." Next boundary could be, "Don't give him too much sugar." That stomp could cost you a lot of money. Young children, when they have cavities, have to be knocked out in order to get them fixed. It's not cheap. My nephew's last dental procedure, he has weak tooth enamel, cost my sister $3,000 out of pocket. Insurance picked up the rest, but it was a fight to get anesthesia covered. Dental insurance didn't want to cover it. Health insurance thought dental insurance should cover it because it was a dental procedure. The next one is titled, "Update IATA for telling my wife her parents are not allowed to watch our son ever again." First off, I want to thank everyone who sent me supportive messages and advice. I never expected my post to get so much attention. Since many of you requested an update, here we go. Turns out some of you were right, my wife was in on it. I confronted her a couple days after I posted and directly asked her if she knew that her parents planned this. She broke down and confessed everything to me. Mill had been pestering her about baptizing our son non-stop and my wife finally caved. My wife has been working from home during COVID while my job requires me to go into the office. My wife and Mill started doing Zoom meetings with MIL's priest to start the baptism process. They lied to the priest and told him that I was okay with baptizing our son but didn't want to be involved. The priest allowed it and they started doing online baptism classes while I was at work. My wife admitted that she planned it around our anniversary getaway and that Mill had somehow convinced the priest that her and Phil would be the only ones in attendance. My wife told me that I wasn't supposed to find out, but Mill couldn't keep her mouth shut for even one day about it. Their intention was to keep this from me permanently. I did contact the church to let them know the truth. I talked with the priest, and he was surprisingly helpful. He said he would take the proper steps to make sure Mill is no longer welcome in their church and to reach out to the local parish to see what further steps need to be taken. I have yet to hear back from them on that. My wife and Mill are mad that I got her kicked out of her church, but I don't care what they think or feel anymore. These people who I love and trust had betrayed me, and I felt a range emotion I didn't know existed. My wife begged for forgiveness, but the fact that she didn't come clean on her own makes me feel she would have kept this from me unless I confronted her. She's willing to do therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. I don't know if I want to put in that work. I feel like there's no coming back from this. I contacted a divorce lawyer and started discussing what a divorce would look like and if there is any way I can add provisions to a divorce agreement that would keep my in-laws from seeing my son unsupervised. He's been very helpful, but I have not given him the go-ahead to actually file for divorce yet. I feel I am still too angry about the entire thing to think rationally and want to give myself time to fully grasp what a divorce will mean for me and my family. My wife and I aren't talking much. I pretty much go to work, come home to play with my son, go to bed, and repeat. I don't know what the future is going to bring, but I do know that without the support and help from people here, I don't think I would have the clarity I do now. The next one is titled, WIBTA if I didn't give my parents a year of a public relationship with my fiancé? Let me start this out by defining public. We, 24F and 27M, are public. Anyone I care about knows about our relationship. The only people we aren't very public with is my family. So, by public, I mean being open with my family. Important to know that we are an interracial couple. I'm white, he's black. Now let me explain why we haven't been public. We met in high school, I was a freshman, and he was a senior. I had a huge crush on him. We texted and flirted, but nothing really happened. He lived in a large foster family home, so no dates allowed. My parents told me he was too old. They told me I was not allowed to speak with him until I was 18 and my dad told him to never contact me again. When I left for college, we started chatting again and had our first date. I told my mom we were talking. She said to only date people with nuclear families and to not talk to him till I was 21. When I corrected her and said it was 18, she told me she was going to drag me home by my hair. In my second year of college, we made it official that we were dating. I texted my mom before Thanksgiving break that I wanted them to meet him. She harassed me about whether I was pregnant and refused to meet him. I told her in a crowded restaurant we officially dating, and she got mad at me for hiding things. Over the course of the next couple years, every time he got brought up, I could visibly watch her demeanor change. When I tried talking about him in front of family, my dad told me that they weren't ready. I eventually just stopped talking about him to them. Eventually my aunt saw his profile picture of us on Facebook and figured it out. My mom said she assumed we broke up because I wasn't talking about him. Now, I'm moving, he's coming with me, and we want to get married after 5 years together. We both have our masters, and I'm starting on my PhD. My dad told me that my fiancé and I haven't done good at being open about our relationship. When I mentioned how mom threatened me, his only response was, I didn't say there weren't reasons. He suggested that I give them a year of an open relationship in order to let the bad guys act like bad guys. I tried, they resisted, I stopped. I want my best friend with me when I take this huge step in life. My mom and her family's position on interracial relationships and racism are quite clear-cut and explicit. I'm not exposing him to that, and I don't want to experience it. But is that insensitive? Would I be the butthole for not entertaining the idea of giving them a chance to get used to our relationship before we get married? Update. I would like to thank you all for your perspective and advice. I wasn't expecting it to get this blown up. I learned some hard truths and I appreciate that. I can't respond to everyone but do know I read your comments. I texted my dad this morning letting him know that I wasn't going to put up or expose my fiancé to bigotry and racism. I told him I wanted a healthy relationship with them, but this wasn't how it's going to happen. I am currently looking into getting teletherapy to help me sort through some deep-rooted issues. I would like to end things on a happy note. My fiancé and I are very excited for our move. We are going somewhere cold and snowy which we love. Our cat son and dog daughter are coming. We hope they will also like the change in climate despite the 12-hour drive they are currently and blissfully unaware of. Again, thank you all for your perspective. I will likely have an update in the future. A user in the comments said, NTA. Your family is racist. Full stop. There is no need to give your parents a year of your relationship being public. They'll likely use this year to come between you and your fiancé. They will continue to be racist and negative throughout the wedding planning process and your marriage. Shield your partner from them as much as you can. As a black girl who dates a lot of white men, I know how painful it is to know your partner's family feel disdainful towards you just for being black. From what little information you've provided, you and your future husband sound like you have a solid relationship. Don't give your family the opportunity to interfere. The next one is titled, Update. WIBTA if I didn't give my parents a year of a public relationship with my fiancé? I wish I had a better update. I also wanted to say thank you to those that commented. I got a lot of encouragement and truth. I am seeing a therapist. A few days after the post I told both my parents that we needed to talk about my fiancé before I moved 10 hours away. They wanted a Zoom call, but I insisted on a phone call because I didn't want to have to communicate with them and be trying to read their facial expressions. The conversation went really badly. I had said I was tired of being expected to just feed them information when they never asked about my life. It was long silences and being told I was avoiding them when I asked them what they wanted to know about my life. Honestly, I really broke down after the conversation. On top of all the stress of moving and the pandemic, I just couldn't take it. My parents were still refusing to acknowledge anything we had talked about. My fiancé was as supportive as you could ask a partner to be during all this, but I was just really struggling. My sleeping schedule completely reversed, in which I was up all night having anxiety attacks and sleeping during the day. At my lowest, I was sitting in my car, eating breakfast, and straight up sobbing. I finally called my dad that morning where he apologized and promised to do better. We had a really constructive conversation. I just wish he had stuck to it. My parents actually finally met him as we moved. We made a pit stop in my hometown since it was on the way so I could see them and my two best friends before leaving. My dad was polite and friendly. My mom was dead quiet. Moving was stressful as expected, but we're happy and almost settled in. We haven't gotten married yet. With COVID cases on the rise, we've been trying to be extra careful. We plan on just a simple courthouse marriage when we get the chance. This is very much to my parents' dismay since I was raised in a conservative Christian home. Otherwise, my parents have completely reverted to their behavior before my original post. Not talking about it, not asking about my life. Nothing. They continue to talk about me behind my back, and my dad straight up lied to his sister about how I have a roommate. I'm focusing on my family. I have someone in my life who is genuinely proud of me and interested in my life and happiness. I have a dog and cat, and now a kitten, that I love with my whole entire heart. We have worked and created a life full of unconditional love. I do grieve for a healthy relationship with my parents, but I'm working on recognizing that I can't depend on a change in their behavior for my own well-being. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the relationship stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and write a comment. I really appreciate your support and it helps my channel so much. Thank you.